this Bauer situation is one of the most intriguing stories, and at the same time, you can honestly say it's very bizarre and scary, and so looking at the situation from your point of view and your expertise, how should we be looking at it? Because I've heard so many differing opinions on the situation that played out with him and is playing out with the young lady that he was involved with in this situation. Can you just give some clarity on? I feel as though, and I could be, I don't have all of the information, so I want to be very careful on this, but I feel as though if they were on the same page when all of this was going down, then there's no way that she should be able to kind of almost entrap him in this situation. Now, again, I am fully apologetic if some way, somehow I am incorrect in what it is and how I'm assessing it. But from my assessment, from the information that I've looked at in this situation and how it has played out, it just seems really, really bizarre and almost like an entrapment situation.
Okay, so first I'm going to give you a free pass because I'm assuming you haven't read the 85 pages and seen the pictures.
I have not. I have not read 85 pages of the report. All I know is I've looked at what the calls, the text messages were, almost basically saying that it was consensual. Those are the things, and that's why I'm prefacing by saying if I am inaccurate, I am fully apologetic if I've put it out there the wrong way, but that's why we have you on the show, is so that you can clear it up, so that someone who sounds ignorant like I may be sounding right now can make sure that doesn't remain the scenario.
So what I first want to say is that I actually sympathize with a lot of men out there who see these circumstances and might feel that just in general, since the Me Too movement, men are sort of under attack in the sense that anybody can be accused of anything, and you see a lot of men in particular being accused of sexual assault and things like that, and they're really on their face at first allegations. And so some men are saying, well, I can really relate to that person who's now been fired or been publicly convicted to the public because they haven't really had their day in court. And so then it creates a situation where any woman could accuse any man of anything, and all of a sudden everyone thinks that man is guilty before the evidence has even come to light, before he's even had a chance at having his own justice or even giving his own side of the story. So putting all that aside, which I feel that's really permeates a lot of people's knee-jerk reactions to these types of stories now, this is a very different scenario. Okay. Because what happened is this woman, after the second sexual encounter, went immediately to the hospital. She had her injuries documented. There were medical reports, there were MRIs, there was extensive testing that went on. She has pictures of everything. She cooperated with a police investigation immediately, where they began recording calls between her and Trevor Bauer.
Correct.
To get him to admit what he did. Here's the simple summary of it, because a lot of people are reading the text messages, and I think the text messages are confusing to people.
Correct.
What matters in this case are the extent of the injuries. You cannot claim consent when you have seriously injured somebody. It's as simple as that. So you could say rough sex, yeah, that's great, and maybe you slap somebody around or you restrain them. When it gets to the point of a person being seriously injured, consent is no longer a defense. On top of that, the woman claims she was unconscious. So if she was, in fact, unconscious, consent is never a defense when someone's unconscious because they can't consent, they're unconscious. We don't know whether she was unconscious. That's a he said, she said. But what we do know is that she was seriously injured. She had black eyes. She had a busted lip. She was vomiting. She was treated for concussion. She had a whole battery of tests. So if you look at the medical reports, if you look at the pictures, she sustained serious injuries. Therefore, in my opinion, consent's off the table. I've used this analogy before. If also Chris beat the what out of me with a baseball bat and you go and do it, you can't claim, well, she told me to do it. So you have to have, let's say, like light injuries if you're in the context of like a sadomasochistic type thing.
But Amy, don't you, like, just even listening to you, don't you think that that's okay, serious injuries, and I'm sympathetic and I'm very, very sensitive to what you're saying right now. But people have fetishes. I mean, it just is what it is. And some people are probably listening to what you're saying, and they're like, some people enjoy getting hurt that way. And listen, I'm just basing it off of things I've seen, things I've read. People have been exposed to seeing those types of acts take place where vomiting may happen, or there's choking and stuff like that. Like, those things play out on regular movies that you can watch on Netflix or cable or whatever it may be. And so to me, I'm this is just me playing the other side of it to
Sure.
get clarity on it, because again, if you're saying that is not a valid defense, if that's what was asked for in the situation, in the scenario, then how how is there a possible other side? Because I heard you say opinion at the end of your response. Is there another side to it?
Yeah, no, I so appreciate that. I love these debates because it really makes people think and opens their minds. And so if, for example, a jury concludes that based on the medical reports and based on the pictures, and I said in my opinion because I think she sustained serious injuries based on reading the reports and looking, but I'm not a medical expert, right? So if you get the medical experts on the stand and they say these are serious injuries and there is a medical threshold for that, and she claims, here's the difference in the scenario you were talking about where people might be seriously injured with rough sex. She claims she did not consent to it. So if that's the case, and the medical experts determine serious injuries and the jury believes them, then he would not have the consent defense. Now, what you're talking about is, yes, people might be seriously injured. I mean, this woman had claw marks. Her whole face was scratched up. So when I'm looking at what happened to her and I'm hearing her say, I consented to light rough sex, but I didn't consent to this, to me, his defense, goes out the window, in my opinion. But when you're saying, well, people do get seriously injured in the context of rough sex, I would say the determining factor there is whether those people, after it happens, say, hey, I never consented to this. So some people might be really seriously injured during rough sex but say, I'm not going to go to the police, I'm not going to go to the hospital because I expected this is what I wanted. She's not saying that. She's saying, I never consented to him punching me in the face, clawing at my face, giving me black eyes, busting my lip, all while I'm unconscious, and seriously injured me to the point when I woke up, I was shaking and crying and ran to the police, even though I was terrified of what the public fallout would be.
Wow.